always hear from you and see you.
Oh, Prabhu, Hare Krishna. You're very kind.
I'm not actually kind, but I do like the truth. I want to be kind. I want
Yeah.
to be more loving, but it's not there yet. Okay, I think Sri Prahlad has joined us also from America. Nice. Prahlad Prabhu, can you see if you can put your video on? Prahlad Prabhu, are you there? Anyway, okay. As we're live already on YouTube, let's just go ahead. Okay, it's all yours, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Om Agana Timirandasya Yanangana Salakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Stapitam Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jata Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatang Sahagana Raganathanditang Tang Sajevam Sadvaitang Sadvadutang Parijana Sahitang Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanditangscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahabhadanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratashe Namaha Namo Brahmanaya Devaya Go Brahmanya Hitaya Cha Jagadhitai Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Hey Krishna Korana Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Well, today we try to speak a little bit about one of Srila Prabhupada's phrases of encouragement. Srila Prabhupada said, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. So I have spoken with some of my godbrothers about this chant Hare Krishna and be happy. And they're telling me that this means that if we chant Hare Krishna, one day when we have realization, we'll become very happy. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. And I'm thinking, no, actually, that's an interpretation. It's not taking Srila Prabhupada's words as they are, as it is. Srila Prabhupada is giving an instruction. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. So I did a little bit of research. Yeah, this is a lecture at Harvard University in 1969, December 24, Boston. Quote, you haven't got to perform any severe austerity, penance, or you have got to go to the forest or the Himalayan mountain, or you have to do this, that. No, nothing. You be situated in your place, whatever it may be, whatever you may be. But if you simply chant this mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, you will gradually develop. The first installment, Srila Prabhupada is talking about our development. Your first installment will be that your heart will be cleansed of all material contamination. Then you'll be situated on the Brahma Bhuta stage. Oh, prasanatma. Oh, joyfulness. Without being joyful, you cannot understand what is God. If your mind is always disturbed, you cannot meditate. Neither you can understand what is God, what you are. It is impossible. So let's read a little bit of that again. Without being joyful, you cannot understand what is God. You cannot meditate. Neither you can understand what is God and what you are. It is impossible. So Srila Prabhupada is telling us that in order to practice Krishna consciousness, we have to be joyful. He says, if we don't do that, without being joyful, you cannot understand what is God. We have to approach Krishna consciousness. We have to approach Krishna and our spiritual master with a joyful heart. And then proportionately we'll receive reciprocation. Reciprocation. Here we have just, so let's read one more. Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 26th chapter, verse number 72. So it's very amazing. Srila Prabhupada says that is not a mechanical process, but we must approach Krishna consciousness with a joyful heart, which means acceptance. That's why Srila Prabhupada says Krishna consciousness is only a matter of understanding and accepting. So joyfulness is the measure of enthusiastic joy. Joyful enthusiasm. This is the measure of our acceptance. We have to take this step. It's not that simply by following, as Srila Prabhupada says, a formula, meaning a checklist of do's and don'ts. Do this, do this, do this. Don't do this, don't do this, and don't do this. That will become Krishna conscious. No. Srila Prabhupada is saying there has to be a measure of acceptance. And that the measure of our acceptance, joyful enthusiasm. Just like in Nectar of Instruction, as Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada says, Utsahan, that there must be three things. He lists 6 things. First 3, enthusiasm and confidence. Of what is that confidence? That confidence, Srila Prabhupada explained, is that Krishna receiving our worship, that Krishna is going to reciprocate with us. And he says, then one can be, this means we have to have a measure of faith that this is a reality. That's why Srila Prabhupada says it's only a question of understanding and accepting. If we're engaging in the process and we don't believe that Krishna can hear our chanting, that Krishna, what is that chanting? Please engage me in your service. Oh Krishna, oh energy of Krishna, Srimati Radharani, please engage me in your service. Let me understand that I'm your servant. But if this is what the mantra means. This is Srila Prabhupada's explanation. That chanting Hare Krishna means, oh Krishna, oh energy of Krishna, please engage me. But if we're calling to Krishna, we're requesting his kindness, we're requesting their mercy. So that request has to be real, and for it to be real, there has to be an acceptance that it is real. And if we really accept, then we automatically become joyful. And unless we approach in that joyful mood, there will be no reciprocation. Because the reciprocation is in response to our frame of mind, that we've accepted that this is real. That's how Srila Prabhupada said, without being joyful, you cannot understand what is God. He will never reveal himself to us. That's why he says Krishna consciousness is only a matter of understanding and accepting. I had one friend, devotee, who was a temple vice president, and he stopped being a devotee or stopped practicing because he said it didn't work for me. No, it doesn't work for anybody until we understand and accept and embrace the reality of Krishna consciousness, and then approach Krishna with a joyful heart. I'll read again. Without being joyful, you cannot understand what is God. So, next quote, Srimad Bhagavatam 3:26-72. As long as the mind is distracted towards the material, there's no possibility of concentrating one's mind and intelligence upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his partial representation, the super soul. In other words, one cannot concentrate one's mind and energy upon the Supreme unless one's detached from the material world. Just like it says in Bible, we cannot worship God and mammon or illusory conception of life. It's one or the other. In other words, one cannot concentrate one's mind and energy upon the Supreme unless one is detached from the material world. Following detachment from the material world, one can actually attain transcendental knowledge of the absolute truth. So Srila Prabhupada says, first we have to become detached, and then we will get knowledge, because we can't approach Krishna if our heart is anchored still in material conceptions of life. As long as one is entangled in sense enjoyment or material enjoyment, it's not possible to understand the absolute truth. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, 1854. One who is free from material contamination is joyful and can enter into devotional service. So joyfulness is the ticket. Joyfulness is the charge that we have to pay, the price we have to pay. I'll read that again. Where is that? One who is freed from material contamination is joyful and can enter into devotional service. And by devotional service, he can be liberated. In Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, it is stated that one becomes joyful. In that joyful attitude, one can understand the science of God or Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, it is not possible. Otherwise, it is not possible. So again, Srila Prabhupada is saying, impossible. First quote we read, it is impossible. Second quote we read, otherwise it is not possible. That we have to approach Krishna with a joyful heart. We have to approach Krishna consciousness with a joy. After all, if we really accept that this philosophy is a reality, who would not be joyful? It's such a wonderful thing. Here we are in this material world, so much suffering. Wherever we look, there's wars on this planet. There's COVID on this planet. There's even in, I forget the name of that country, big earthquake, 50,000 people killed overnight. So much suffering, birth, old age, disease, and death. And we're being given the opportunity how to make our exit, how to leave this cycle of birth and death. If we actually accept that this is a reality, oh, how joyful we will be. How joyful we will be. So therefore, in that joyful attitude, Srila Prabhupada said, one can begin to understand the science of Krishna. What does that mean? It means that if we approach with a joyful heart, there will be revelation. In devotional service, the means and the end are not different. The means is devotion, and the goal is devotion. To have a heart filled with devotion means gratitude for the opportunity that's available to us. So Srila Prabhupada is saying, unless we come to this platform, we will not have this reciprocation. Next quote. This is a lecture 1972, October 31st in Vrindavan, India. If, quote, if you accept Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga, devotional service to the Lord, you shall be prasanna manasa. Prasanna manasa. You shall be always feeling jolly. If I'm not jolly, if I'm not prasanna manasa, it means Maya has attacked me. That means I'm believing what Maya is telling me, that I'm this body. A Bhagavad Bhakta shall never be prasanna or unhappy, not joyful, always joyful. If he's actually in contact with Krishna, how he can be morose? No. If he is morose, if he is unhappy, that means Maya has attacked him. This is the test. So again, Srila Prabhupada says that if we're accepting Krishna, the reality of Krishna consciousness, then he says, always joyful, always jolly. Okay, next quote. So this is not isolated statement. This is statement after statement after statement. Oh, there goes to the next page and the same quote. This is the test. Therefore, the Rupa Goswami says, Utsaha, we shall be always enthusiastic, but we cannot become enthusiastic artificially. There must be Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga. It must be, in other words, opening our heart to the reality that Krishna is receiving my devotional service. And this is a personal process, not artificially, not mechanically, doing and waiting for that something will happen, like taking a pill and my disease will go away. But it has nothing to do with the condition of my heart. It's a question, it's a mechanical process. No. That enthusiasm, Srila Prabhupada, but we cannot become enthusiastic artificially. There must be Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga. So real enthusiasm means to take up a devotional attitude, to be grateful, to be cheerful, to be joyful that this is, and just step into it. As much as we do, there will be realization. And there's no other way in. That's why Srila Prabhupada said, it's simple for the simple. It's only a question of understanding and accepting. Real acceptance means to engage with joyful enthusiasm. That is the real acceptance that is required. Next quote. This is from a lecture 1972, based on Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter, 20th verse. Srila Prabhupada is speaking. So, after acquiring this knowledge, the life of devotional service, it begins. Brahmabhuta prasanatma na sochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param. That is required, Srila Prabhupada says. And in that stage of devotional life, one can understand what is Krishna. So what did that verse mean? It means that one becomes joyful within the heart. In that stage, one can understand what is Krishna. That is required. And in that stage of devotional life, then one can understand what is Krishna. Bhaktya mama bijanati. That means I cannot be understood, I cannot be known other than by devotion of the heart. Bhaktya mama, that is tattvata understanding. That is real understanding. Srila Prabhupada. In another place it is said, I'm reading again, in the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Evam Prasanna Manaso Bhagavad Bhakti Yogata. Unless one becomes jubilant, joyful, by executing devotional service, he cannot understand what is Krishna. It is not possible. You see, same thing again and again, whether it's a lecture in India or a lecture in China or a lecture on the moon. Unless we engage with a joyful heart, it is not possible. Then Srila Prabhupada says, unless one becomes jubilant, joyful, by executing devotional service, he cannot understand what is Krishna. It is not possible to understand superficially. You see, there's two kinds of understanding. One can memorize Bhagavad Gita. I know one devotee. He memorized Bhagavad Gita. He can tell you every verse, but he says, but I still have no feeling. So then Srila Prabhupada says, to understand superficially that Krishna, and then he quotes, he appeared in Mathura, in his uncle's prison house. See, we know all these facts. We can repeat. Then Srila Prabhupada says, that is also nice. Oh, it's nice to know all these things. But one should try to understand Krishna in fact, not so many logical formulas. And that fact can be only revealed by devotion. And you cannot challenge Krishna. Krishna will, if we become sevomukha, if we try to serve Krishna as eternal servant of Krishna, then Krishna will reveal himself, what he is. So there's a difference between understanding the philosophy and embracing the philosophy. To understand superficially, that is also nice, Srila Prabhupada says. It's nice, but we have to move beyond to the platform of taking Krishna consciousness as a reality and embracing it. Krishna consciousness is only a question of understanding and accepting. And the measure of our acceptance is joyful enthusiasm. It's simply a question of understanding and accepting. And that's real accepting. And then everything is there. Here, 1969, New Vrindavan, June 10, 1969, lecture. Srila Prabhupada says, so, transcendental life means to understand the absolute truth. The absolute truth can be understood perfectly only through devotional service. There's no other way. There is no other way. In every scripture, Vedic scripture, this is announced. In Bhagavatam also, the same thing is confirmed. Evam prasanna manaso, Bhagavad Bhakti Yogita. When by discharging devotional service, one will be prasanna manasa, very jolly mood, always jolly. Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangyasya Jayate, unless one is freed from material anxiety, unless one is spiritually joyful, he cannot understand what is the science of Krishna. I'll read it again. This, unless one is spiritually joyful, he cannot understand what is the science of Krishna. Again, it is not possible. Srila Prabhupada keeps saying it is not. So he continues, Srila Prabhupada, so therefore we have to cultivate this devotion. Then our ultimate goal of life, to understand the absolute truth, our relationship, that will be perfectly done. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining that there are certain prerequisites for entering into the arena of devotional service. And that prerequisite is, it's not that it works mechanically, that if I do this and do this and do this and do this, and I don't do this and I don't do this, and that something is going to happen. No, he's saying that one has to come to the platform of acceptance. And what is that acceptance? Unless one is joyful, he cannot understand with the science of Krishna. And he has to accept that this is a reality and say, thank you, let me embrace your lotus feet by chanting this mantra, by chanting in a joyful frame of mind. Then, thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada said. Please accept his lecture. Thank you very much. Here, March 1969, Hawaii. A lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 9th chapter, verse number 8. Every living entity is by nature joyful, spiritually. And because he is materially covered, his joyfulness is hampered. That is the real position. Feverish condition. One becomes sick, attacked by fever. His joyfulness goes away. He becomes sick. Similarly, our natural position is joy. Ananda Mayo Vyasa. See, Srila Prabhupada is saying that I have been told by some devotees that to adopt a joyful attitude is artificial. And Srila Prabhupada is saying, Krishna consciousness is not an artificial, imposition on the mind. It's our real consciousness. Similarly, our natural position is joy, Srila Prabhupada said. Krishna is joyful. I'm part and parcel of Krishna. I'm Krishna. How can I not be not anything other than Krishna? I am Krishna, but I'm not the supreme Krishna. I'm a tiny part of Krishna, and Krishna is joyful. Therefore, I must be joyful. Just like take a drop of seawater is salty. It has the same salty taste as the whole ocean because it's part of the ocean. We have the qualities of Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining, Krishna is joyful. I am part and parcel of Krishna. Therefore, I must also be also joyful. That is natural. Srila Prabhupada continues, that is natural. If my father is black, then I'm also black. If my mother is black, I am also black. So our Father, the Supreme Father, Krishna, he's joyful. Don't you see Krishna's attitude? Anywhere you see Krishna is joyful. so Srila Prabhupada says, this is our natural. It's not artificial. It's our natural. It's our natural symptom of being a spirit soul. Let's go on to next. Nectar of Devotion lecture, 1972, December 27, lecture on Nectar of Devotion. So, Srila Prabhupada says, so, Krishna consciousness means one is not identifying himself with this material body. He's identifying himself in his original constitutional position. Aham Brahmasmi. I am spirit. Then he quotes again this verse, Brahmabhuta, 1854 from Bhagavad Gita. Brahmabhuta prasanatma na sochati na kangshati samasarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. Mad bhaktim labhate param. Srila Prabhupada continues. Translation, I'm just going to say, there's Krishna says, then you can become my devotee. Mad bhakti labhate param. So Srila Prabhupada says, after being liberated from all these designations, one begins his devotional service, devotional life. And Krishna says, if one wants to know me, then he must accept. We have to accept that this is a reality in order to enter into it. Tattvata. If one wants, Srila Prabhupada continues, Tattvata, if one wants to know Krishna, God, as he is, then he has to accept the process of devotional service. Bhaktya mama bijanati, Srila Prabhupada is quoting where Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita, unless you become devoted to me, you can never know me. There is another verse, Srila Prabhupada writes here. There is another verse in Bhagavatam, Evam prasana manaso Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga. By practicing the Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga prasana manaso, one has to become first of all joyful by identifying himself with the spirit. Brahma bhuta prasanatma na sochati na kankshati. Then, when he becomes joyful, then he understands that I'm not this material body. I'm spirit soul. I'm not American. I'm not Indian. I'm not Brahmin. I'm not this. I'm not that. There's so many things. No, I'm spirit soul. I'm part and parcel of Krishna. This is called Brahma Bhuta. Evam Prasanna Manaso. When one becomes Brahma Bhuta, at that time he becomes joyful. Na sochati, na kankshati. No more hankering, no more lamenting. In this state of life, prasanna manaso, evam prasanna manaso, Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga, by practicing Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga, at that time one can understand what is the science of God. It's not a sentiment. It is a vijnana, it's a science. And the science, so Srila Prabhupada is saying, we have to enter into it in order for us to taste it. That's again what he's saying, that you're holding a bottle of honey and you're licking the outside, wanting to have the taste. It will never happen. We have to enter into it. So enter into it means to accept. There's no other way, because Krishna understands our heart. What good is our devotion, a devotional activity to Krishna, if we're not doing it personally with a joyful heart? He's not measuring our footsteps. I have an insurance plan, and they're sending me that if you take so many steps a day, and you wear a meter on your body, and it tells you how many steps, and if you take all these steps, then you get a reward. They send you something, a pair of underwear or socks or something. You get a reward for taking those steps. Krishna consciousness doesn't work that way. Krishna consciousness works by the degree to which we embrace the reality of it and engage then with a joyful heart. Here's another lecture. This one was at a fire sacrifice in 1969. Srila Prabhupada is either he's giving initiation or performing a marriage ceremony, fire sacrifice. Here's 1969, July 16, fire sacrifice, Los Angeles. Srila Prabhupada says, that Brahma Bhuta means simply to understand that I am not the material body. To be convinced firmly, with all reason and argument, firmly conviction. This is called faith. Faith is not flickering. One must be firmly convinced. So then you immediately become joyful. Again and again, Srila Prabhupada said. So then, when for real faith means joyful, that if we really accept, in other words, who would not be joyful? Not that we're understanding intellectually this philosophy, but we're accepting it. So one, just like if you are implicated with some undesirable affairs, and if you, Srila Prabhupada speaking, and if you some way or other, your lawyer advises you, oh, you are now free from this implication. The law does not bind you anymore. So you feel pleasure. Oh, I am not in this implication. Yes. Oh, I'm not in this implication? He's asking the lawyer. And the lawyer says, yes. Similarly, as soon as you're convinced that you're not this material body, then immediately he becomes joyful. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatmana Sochati. And what is that joyfulness? There's no more lamentation. There's no hankering. If you have hankering, then you are not joyful. If you have lamentation, if you have hankering, then you are not joyful. If you have lamentation, then you're not joyful. These are the signs. So, speaking like this, not because I'm on this platform, because I'm trying to understand, this process of Krishna consciousness and to discuss it with my God brothers, God sisters, that the price we have to pay for entering into the arena and of devotional service, the price we have to pay is to embrace it, and to embrace the understanding, to understand and accept. And the measure of our acceptance is to engage with joyful enthusiasm from moment to moment. So when we're just like when we were children and going to the school, that we have fire drill. Fire drill means that there was not really a fire, but if there was a fire in the building, there would be a big alarm, an automatic alarm would sound. Everyone should leave the building because we shouldn't get burnt up in the fire. So that alarm system. So when we are feeling unhappy, when we are being plagued with desires that are not desires for devotional service, or if we're having lamentation, or if we're having anger, or if we're having so many things, that is an alarm to warn us that now we're in the fire, not the fire of Krishna consciousness, we're in the fire of illusion. We're in the Maya's fire. So Srila Prabhupada says, these are the signs. If you have lamentation, then you're not joyful. These are the signs. So we go to the next. Here's a lecture. July 16, 1969. Why I do this research? Because it's refuted. It's being refuted. That people are saying that you just do this, and you just don't do this, and you'll become, Krishna will reveal himself to you. No, he won't. He reveals himself in response to our attitude. If our attitude is impersonal, Krishna will always remain impersonal. And if we approach Krishna with a joyful heart, Krishna will respond and reveal his joy with us. This is the science of Krishna consciousness. Here's this lecture, July 16, 1969. So, Srila Prabhupada says, so, Brahmabhuta. Anyway, if you realize yourself that you are not, that Brahmabhuta means simply to understand, I am not this material body, to be convinced firmly, with all reason and argument, firmly, conviction. This is called faith. Faith is not flickering. Oh, we read this before, but it's good. We'll read it again. One must be firmly convinced. So then you immediately, what? You immediately become joyful. So this Krishna consciousness movement is to take one from the material concept of life, material consciousness, to the platform of Krishna consciousness. He's saying that if you accept this understanding, he says, then he will be joyful. End of quote. As much as joyfulness is the symptom of acceptance. Joyfulness is the measure of our acceptance. So Srila Prabhupada says we must have this firm conviction. We must have this acceptance in order to enter into the arena of Krishna consciousness. Here's another letter to Satswarupa, 1970, April 28th, written from Los Angeles. Anyone, Srila Prabhupada writes, who gives oral reception to the transcendental message about you, meaning about Krishna, which are always auspicious by hearing and chanting, for him you become a special well-wisher. That Krishna really appreciates if we hear and chant about him. Krishna becomes our well-wisher. And thus remaining within his heart, you, Krishna, clear up all inauspicious understanding. When such inauspicious understandings are almost clear, at that time, one realizes the importance of devotion. In that stage of understanding, the influence of the modes of ignorance and passion, that's hankering and lamenting, become almost nil, and the resultant action of passion and ignorance cannot anymore attack the heart. And thus, he becomes joyful, being situated on the platform of goodness. So here Srila Prabhupada is saying that the platform of goodness is the platform of joyfulness. That's how much we are in goodness. Because if we're not, what is hankering and lamenting? Desiring and lamenting. Its passion is material desire, and lamentation is ignorance, mode of ignorance. Having material desire is mode of passion, and having lamentation is mode of ignorance, and mode of goodness is being happy, joyful. Srila Prabhupada continues. And thus he becomes joyful being situated on the platform of goodness. Srila Prabhupada wants us to become Brahmins. A Brahmin is one who is situated in goodness. In goodness, one is always joyful. The Brahmabhuta platform is cultivated, Krishna says, by keeping oneself in goodness. One enters the joyful platform. So here Srila Prabhupada continues, when he thus becomes jubilant on account of awakening the mode of goodness. I'll read that again. When he thus becomes jubilant on account of awakening the mode of goodness, by dint of devotional service, at that time he becomes liberated from material contamination and is able to understand the science of God. So you can see Srila Prabhupada is saying, no matter where he's lecturing or where he's writing, or he's writing a letter, or he's writing his books, or he's speaking, he's saying the same thing, that to understand it's a science. If you go, when we went to university, we studied science. The scientific method, they taught us, scientific method means hypothesis, procedure, and conclusion. That you don't accept anything blindly. There's a theory, and then there's a hypothesis, and then there's an experiment that we make in the laboratory, that if you combine oxygen and water, oxygen and hydrogen, H2O, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part water. If you combine them in the laboratory, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen, and it makes water, then you know that the theory is real. So he says, then you make your conclusion. We would write our lab report. We use so many ounces of this, so many ounces of that. We combine them in the beaker, and we with the fire, etc. And we got this much water. It proves the theory. So science means. So if you look in Vedanta Sutra, there's 3 sections: Sambandha, Abhadeya, and Prayojana. Sambandha means theory. It's the theory. And Abhadeya means now you practice this theory. You apply it. And Prayojana means you have the conclusion. Love of God. So Krishna, in the same way, Krishna consciousness is a science. It means that we don't simply stay on the platform of intellectual, conceptual understanding, but we apply the science. But in the science of spiritual life, we have to put ourselves into the test tube. We cannot remain outside and come to a conclusion. We have to submit ourselves. This is called submission, inquiry, submission, and service. Tadvidi pranipatena paraprashnena sevaya upadekshyanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshanaha. The tattvadarshi, the one who has the darshan of the tattva, of the supreme absolute truth, you listen to him, you hear from him, and you accept what he's saying, and then you'll have realization. This means submission means to accept. So we have to accept. Otherwise, we'll always remain on the border, on the fringe, on the shore of that great ocean. Bhakti Ras Amrita Sindhu. Sindhu means ocean, ocean of devotional life. It will always remain on that shore, waiting that one day, by mechanically doing that I'll have realization. No, we won't. But we have to dive into that ocean, and that diving in means to understand, and to understanding is first step, and then to accept. And the measure of our acceptance is how much we engage with joyful enthusiasm. And that it means that we enter into the test tube and see that the change takes place. So Krishna says, in this, Srila Prabhupada continues, when he thus becomes jubilant on the, and thus he becomes joyful, being situated on the platform of goodness, and when he thus becomes jubilant on account of awakening the mode of goodness, at that time he becomes liberated from material contamination, and he's able to understand the science of God. In this stage of liberation, all misgivings in the heart or bondage of material network, they become cut to pieces. and he's elevated from all sorts of doubts in the science of God. So I'm not talking to you because I'm firmly situated in that way. I'm talking to you because I want to cultivate in that way. And by sharing this understanding with my God brothers, God sisters, then maybe all together we can become a little bit more encouraged with the understanding that the price for entering into devotional service is the measure of our acceptance. And the real measure of our acceptance is to engage with joyful enthusiasm. Immediately we feel free from passion. Immediately we feel free from hankering and lamenting. So this is there. There are hundreds of quotes like this. I've given you some half dozen or dozen. And I'm asking you to consider, even Srila Rupa Goswami says, the first thing required is enthusiasm. And then utsahan. And the next thing required is confidence, which Srila Prabhupada explains in the commentary in Nectar of Instruction means faith. And in Brahma Samhita, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says that our realization is proportionate to our faith. When we have faith, we begin to engage with a real feeling of devotion. Bhaktya mam abhijanati. Without faith, one cannot engage in bhakti. It's not bhakti, it's mechanical service. Bhakti is a condition of the heart, a condition of the consciousness. And without that condition of joyful, enthusiastic engagement, it's never going to happen. So we said, make the experiment. That's why Srila Prabhupada writes that in Bhagavad Gita 4:34, that blind following is useless. Don't be blind follow. Have the experience. The experience of as soon as we engage within, that is our constitutional position. Do we accept that this is our constitutional position? Then we begin to live on that platform. Yes. I'm being given notice that my speaking time is finished. Wrap it up, she said. So it's a wrap. So
it's a wrap.
Yeah.
It's a knockout.
Yeah.
Another Tyson knockout.
So we're trying to share in this way, according to our limited capacity, according to our limited application. But we believe it, and we like to talk about it. We want to talk about it to encourage not only yourself, but ourselves. Hare Krishna. If anyone has anything to add or subtract, this is time for that sort of thing. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Balaram Prabhu. There's nobody there.
Hare Krishna. Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I hear you. Does anyone want to add or subtract?
Okay, let me ask first. Prahlad Prabhu, are you there? Would you like to ask a question or make a comment? Yeah, I mean, it's probably the question I ask at the end of every lesson. So I don't want to ask the same one, but it's the one that puzzles it. It's the one that puzzles everyone, which is,
Yeah.
can you hear me okay, or should I do something to change?
No, it seems to be working. Go ahead, please.
What about now? Is that better?
Yeah, it's great.
Okay. I just unplugged the microphone speaker. So, there are some, and it seems, I don't know, not so rare, but kind of rare that some devotees just join and start reading Prabhupada's books and they're enthusiastic. Immediately they have faith, and you can see they're bright faced and they're following the process. And I've even had senior mature devotees tell me, I always hang around with new bhaktas because they have this new energy about them. And I want that energy. I want that enthusiasm. Exactly this word, actually. And then there are some that are joined that even from the beginning, it's like a huge struggle for them. It's like, oh man, yeah, I understand, but I have to do everything for Krishna. Before I had a little bit of enthusiasm, at least I was doing it for me.
I think you got cut out. I was hearing you, and then I, for some reason, the communication was broken. Can you hear me, Balaram?
I can hear you now. My internet is not so good, actually.
That's no problem. Um, so I didn't hear the end of of your question or remark.
Yeah. Basically, those devotees who come into the Krishna conscious movement, they already have, like, from their even material life where they were always positive, happy, and enthusiastic. They don't seem to have a problem. So my question is not for them. My question is for the ones who come in and they're already struggling, depressed, maybe negative, maybe, and they understand the philosophy, Krishna's God and spiritual body, and I've got to serve him. But it really feels like they're going against the grain of their nature. And it's a real struggle to chant, to wake up early, or anything. So how do these people switch it to enthusiasm and increase their faith?
I don't have it in front of me, but Srila Prabhupada says you have the power to do it. I have it written, and you have to do it. And it's up to us. Of course, when somebody comes, it's something new, right? Like Srila Prabhupada says, even a material thing, a new song is on the radio or whatever. I don't know if they still have radios today. When I was a kid, they had radios. We would listen to the latest rock and roll music, and but it wouldn't last very long. There would
Right.
every week there would be new songs because the old song became hackneyed, and they would always need something new. That's how material world is. We go for on vacation, and it's very beautiful here. But after 1 or 2 days, we become restless because we need something new, always something new. So this kind of enthusiasm at the very beginning, it's new, it's different. So that then they can be, but if they haven't actually opened their heart to the reality of it, then it will become, uh, they won't have the taste. That newness will be, that the novelty of it, it will wear off. So we have to, each one of us, of course, there's inconceivable benefit for chanting the holy name and taking prasadam, all of these things. But Srila Prabhupada explains, and he also says, I have many quotes where Srila Prabhupada says, even if one engages mechanically, there will be a mitigation of the unwanted, superfluous miseries of material existence. But it will not serve to invoke or to reawaken our feelings of connection with Krishna. It won't do that.
Yeah.
So the price is that we have to, how much we can open our hearts to the reality of it. So then it won't be, as you're describing, that the new person has this sense of novelty and excitement and apparent enthusiasm. That won't grow old. It'll get sweeter. That it grows old means they've never opened their hearts up, that they've never really accepted. They're waiting for something to happen. It doesn't work that way. What's that, hon? 3 minutes, what? Oh, my time is up in 3 minutes, my wife says. So, so I hope that makes some sense. In other words, we shouldn't be enjoying it because it's something new, a novelty. That won't last. We have to actually do, as Srila Prabhupada is saying, that we have to embrace the reality, and that is the experiment that we have to make. To embrace Krishna consciousness as a reality and have the confidence that Krishna is receiving our devotion, and that we engage in that way with a personal feeling, then there will be a sense of reciprocation, and that will make us want more. So those who have become lost that initial surge of enthusiasm because of some novelty, it means they've never opened up to the reality of it. And it's for each of us. How much 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 of people join or don't join, it always comes back to what am I going to do about it in my life? You know what Srila Prabhupada writes in his preface to Bhagavad Gita, that he says if one person becomes a devotee, he'll consider his whole mission a success. In other words, it's very rare that people really go for it. It's it can have millions of church members. It can have 1 million members, Prabhupada Nuga, whatever you want to call them. It's not about being a member of something. It's about accepting the fact that I'm Krishna's eternal servant. I'm the spirit soul, and engaging with gratitude and with a joyful enthusiasm, embracing the reality. And as much as we embrace the reality, we experience the inherent sense of reciprocation, which makes us want more. It doesn't fade, it increases. So we all have to do that. And if we're not getting that, it means I haven't opened my heart yet. So I'm just trying to encourage that this is how it actually works, not by mechanically doing something and waiting for some response. It's Krishna consciousness is called yoga, means making a connection with the absolute. And bhakti yoga means making a connection with the absolute through the heart. And if the bhakti is not there, it's not bhakti yoga. So we have to understand this and make the experiment in order to become convinced. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. I'm going to sign off now, Prabhu. Hare
Ishan,
Krishna.
Prabhu, thank you so much. And again, thank you for another knockout punch to the heart of the matter. Sorry for my being late, and thank you for giving us your time once again.
No problem, Prabhu. Just I thank you for letting this foolish person try to speak about Krishna consciousness.
Okay, just quickly, before we'll discuss it. Next Tuesday, I'll be actually flying back to Turkey on the 26th, one day after. So anyway, I'll speak to Ramachandra Prabhu, see if he can host it. If not, we'll move it to Wednesday, I guess.
Okay, you'll let me know what's going on
Yeah.
one
Yeah,
another.
I'll organize it and just let you know what's happening.
Thank you, Prabhu. Sending you a long distance hug.
Hare Krishna Jai.
Krishna Jai, Prabhu.
From me to you too. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki. Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.